Good morning and welcome. It's a wonderful summer morning. In fact, it's August the 3rd, 2018, and behind me you see an historic house. You see the markings right behind me on the post here showing that it's historic. And they allowed us to put a double lock standing seam Galvalume metal roof on this, which we're nearing completion right now. It's been a wonderful project and there's been a lot of work, and it's taken us a little longer than we ever dreamed to get this project where it is right now. I'll tell you all about it when we come back. Now, when you do a house of any kind, and especially a historic project like this, there's a lot of things that will need to be adjusted. You can see where we've added a drip rail, a 1x4 drip rail here, and then going up these rake edges, we actually tried to save the crown molding, and we did a good job saving it. We come up a couple pieces short after combining some, and we had to have some milled. You cannot buy this anymore. Now, I know it's hard to see. Let me see if I can get a little closer here, but it's a nice detail. Now, to get that to show up after we put this large 2-inch drip edge on there, that had to be lowered, and that means a filler board up on top of that. And it came out quite well. That way, the historic look that it always had is there. So important with projects like this. Now, it's not only historic homes and super old homes that we find that there's more to do than just putting on shingles. One of my lead men today has been with me for well over a decade, and I were talking about how so many guys today in the industry think that they're roofers. That would be like a person that works at Discount Tire thinking that they're a mechanic because they've changed tires. Installing panels, installing shingles is not all there is to roofing. Most people are completely blind to that, completely missing that, and that's why we have so many failures today on roofing. Roofing should last a long time installed correctly. Granted, some of the shingles are not the quality that they could be, should be, and they are drying out, failing pretty early, 7 to 10 years. But the biggest problem that we're having is in our region is, and I look at these daily, and I get called, and I am called in as expert witness for lawsuits. I hate that kind of thing, but my goodness, there's so many shortcuts taken that some people really get had. And so when I need to, I help with that. I try to stay out of that, but only if I'm kind of twisted into that, we get involved in that. But it's a shame that roofs fail the first year. The second year, and up to 5 years, most roofs now fail. And the reason is improper install, or just going with what's there, thinking that the job is just changing the tire. If you're a mechanic, you've got to know more than just changing the tire. If you're a roofer, you have to know more than just putting on the panels. For example, on this house, typical of a historic house, it had two areas where the add-ons had been, taken place. In this case, primarily the garage add-on, which was the second add-on. They added on the sunroom, an adjoining room. Actually, I think the adjoining room had been added on years and years ago, and then they added on a sunroom behind that, somewhere I think in the 60s. And then came a garage, which is the building right behind me, the walls that you see right behind me. Now with that garage, it created some terrible long blind valleys. A blind valley is where the water just gets trapped and stuck and has to build up a lot to even run off. And of course, that's always going to create a leak, if not now, very, very soon. So what we ended up doing on that was putting in some nice blind valleys that have pitch on them. Blind meaning you can't really see them from the ground. And we put them on in a way that they have enough pitch on them to get the water off, to help get the leaves off. And still they're going to require some maintenance with a little bit of blowing the leaves and debris, because this, as you can see, the shadows on me right now is covered with trees, which is absolutely fantastic, but that creates some water flow problems. Let's flip around. I'm going to show you here what I mean by this blind valley right here. Now this section we completely altered. This was absolutely flat going across there, parallel with the siding. And what that meant is water would go down there and it just stopped. Not only that, but that large vent that I'm pointing at right there was over here in that blind valley. So we moved that out to get it out of the way. And then you can see this blind valley now goes up, heads up there, and we have good fall. The pitch is a little more than a 1/12 pitch. And then on that section we did 1.5 inch, double locked, sealed at the joints, standing seam, so we could end up with a roof that we knew was going to last for the next 40, 50 years like the rest of the roof. And it's a roof that will help drain not only the water off, but will help drain the leaves off. Now that was only one of the areas that we had to do, and let's take a look at the other one right now. It's right by us. This is the other section. And again, this roof just came down straight to the siding, and there was a pan flashing that went all the way across this, nearly 16 feet, I think it is, across here. And you see that we've put in a new ridge, and we now have a good pitch on this. And so now that we have this nearly 3/12 pitch bringing the water out, we also widened this at the bottom so we could hope that many of the leaves get out of here. And of course we put a kick out to get it out of the siding right here, and then the water comes into a collector head for gutters that come down and put it down onto this. We don't want water splattering on these walls, because if we get water splattering on these walls, you end up with rotting and things like that. So we're trying to control it from here all the way down and then let it flow down to a collector head on the bottom end of this little valley. And now you can see it goes underneath the air conditioner, getting the water off. And that's about 1.5 feet lower than I am up on this side. Now to do this job, and again, this is what I'm talking about, you know, if you're going to do roofing, we consider ourselves in the home improvement business. We're not just roofers, we're in the home improvement business. And what that means is, to us, you've got to be able to do things like this. To do a roof right, you've got to set it up right. And that's what we really work at to make sure we do well. This window was actually a double hung window, had the old weights on it. In fact, as we saved the old weights, I don't know if they have any value or not, but you know, the ones that's on the ropes that pull the window up and down. We got the okay from the Historic Commission to alter this window so we could get proper drainage off of this roof both ways. Then we put in the new siding and made this look like it'd always been that way. Now this is actually in a little bitty hallway that's really not an active room in the house. It's actually become more of just storage. So as far as the functionality of the house, it's still just like it was. And the window was too low anyway. It went all the way down to the roof within 6 inches of where it was. You could have actually raised the window, stepped out on the roof. Not a good practical thing to do. And it's in a hallway, not in a room. So it was not an egress or ingress type window. Now, around all the areas of the roof, and we see so many roofers just pookie or caulk some sort of a flashing to the wood, and that never lasts. And why roofs fail so soon is because people lack the ingenuity, lack the capability, lack the training, and lack the supervision of getting it done right. And you see here, we took off the siding. We had to take out the door trim. We had to take off the corner trim on the far side. All that had to come off to get this installed correctly. But a roof is going to last 40 and 50 years, and galvanized and galvanized used to last 30, 35 years. With Galvalume, we know we're looking at 40 and 50 years. The last thing you want to do is have issue after issue every 5 to 7 years with the siding not being over the roofing, flashing, and relying totally on caulk, because that never works. And that's some of the things that keep us so ahead of our competition, is that we do the roof where it's going to last just like we were going to own the home for the next 30, 40, 50 years. Now, as is so typical with a old home like this, it's a wonderful historic home, but somewhere along, we think in the 60s, they added on a room that was somewhat supposed to be a sunroom. They had glass block skylights under here. It's a very unique concept. However, they failed pretty early. and then they came back and put some double dome skylights on top of them to keep the water from coming through primarily. The glass blocks are actually better insulation than the double dome skylights. And as you can see, as we worked around them, some of the skylights had been here so long, the UV rays had eaten away on them, and so they had broke. So we have some new skylights coming, and we're going to be replacing these entirely. But what I wanted to show you on this is that you want to make sure that everything is done in a way, and this is something that we take a lot of pride in. We just find that none of our competitors are living up to really doing roofing in a way that roofing works. And roofing works really well if you know flashing and you know the products, because you can combine those two and end up with a roof, and you can end up with a roof that does not need to be reliant on caulk and sealants and glue. Why? Because those inevitably break loose. Metal expands and contracts. That creates its own problem with caulk because it almost inevitably cracks loose. Plus the UV rays are going to be working on it, plus this Texas heat, our typical rooftop temperature to touch in the afternoons this time of year is around 135 to 145 degrees. So with that expansion in the metal, that heat, caulk just doesn't last. So I'm going to swing the camera around. Let's take a look at what we do to actually flash these skylights in a way that you know they're going to last for the life of the roof. Okay, we're going to use the one here with the plastic on it just because it's in the solid shade, maybe get the light here a little bit better. But we see here, this is a pretty typical head wall flashing. Down underneath here, there's actually a Z flashing, we call it, that this hooks into, so water cannot come back under there. It then, of course, is sealed with tacky tape and caulk on the edges, protected from the UV rays, and with very little movement because it's all small parts. Notice that it's pop riveted into place. We don't use screws in areas like this. We use stainless steel pop rivets. Now this panel starts right here, where the panel below it comes up way past it. That means we have a split sheet panel, and you'll hear me use that term a lot. We have a split sheet panel that makes this absolutely watertight, not relying on caulk and pookie down here as so many of our competition does still today. I'm not sure why they still do that. It just doesn't work. Now if you look at the top side, and actually I'm going to back down to the top side of this other one here, that is skylight above the skylight, and you see them both together here. And what you see here is this pan that went past this comes over here and is locked in. Now we did not put a cleat screwed into this pan. This is a soldered pan, as you can see right here. You can see the soldering of that right there. Hope I can get close enough that you can see that soldered across here, and it's a soldered pan that goes all the way across. Now the water coming off of here, there is a cleat around here, but the cleat that this panel is locked into is folded into the metal before we put it on. We're not screwing down through there, so there's no penetrations. And then this pan goes way past this pan, so you end up having no way water can back up that far. And that's the system that we use on all these skylights. And as you can see, we've got 6 skylights here on this area, and they are real prone to leaking if not done correctly. And that's the only way we do them. Now another thing we do, we use split sheets and a zinc flashing. This is zinc, not lead, because it's steel roofing. And then we fold it in, comes up the standing seam, so even if this caulking here were to crack, that pan underneath that's attached to this lead goes all the way up to here. Water cannot get past it. Same thing with this. This is a B-vent flashing, and it's installed the exact same way. Now this is the section with the skylights, and you can see we've got 2 that's broken. The others are probably going to break any time, any year, anytime something bumps them slightly. So that's why we have ordered new skylights for this. This is a very custom size, very, very unique. But take a look at the flashing, and you notice, you see on that flashing, you see this area where that flashing is tied into the roofing. Again, it's got a cleat built into it so the water cannot back up underneath, and it allows us to hook the panel on. The water then runs down the side to another split sheet on the front sides of the skylights. This roof can never leak. It is not reliant upon caulk. Now behind me you get an idea of this area here. This low area was some sort of an addition way back. Don't know how long ago. The house was built in 1908. Behind me, original part of the house. I'm guessing that this part was an outside patio area. Don't know that for sure, but with all indication, this was probably like a screen room, an outdoor screen room. There's a front porch area that overlooked the farm back then, and now it's a main street here in Round Rock. But the part behind me is the original construction, the 2-story, and you see that we have a 1-inch standing seam on that, and with all the low pitch sections, the low pitch sections, including the front porch, we installed a 1.5-inch double lock. Everything is a double lock, which means it's mechanically locked, machine locked, double folded, so water cannot creep up and over the standing seams. Now we're walking up towards the chimney. I want to just get one more point in as far as doing work and trying to get it right on a house of any kind. It doesn't matter if it's historic or not. If it's ready for a re-roof, there's a good chance you need to look at some of these issues, same as we have on this house. Now this is a chimney, and here we installed a new flashing. It is all the way around. It's into the mortar. It's set into mortar. It is not caulked in place. Caulk always creates a dam and holds water into the brick, and you don't want to do that. You want the water to flow out here. This flashing goes in a good 1.5 inches and has a turn back or a kickback on the inside, and that kickback stops the water from going into the chimney and brings the water out. So that's what we do on every job that we do, is we look for areas like that need attention, and we make sure it's done. Can you imagine spending the money on a new roof like this and a year later finding that you had leaks at the doors, at the walls, at the chimneys? There can be nothing more aggravating than that.